More on that, we're now being joined by Harsh V. Pant, who is the head of the Observer Research Foundation's Strategic Studies Program. Thank you so much for being with us here on the broadcast live on WION World is One. Help us understand the implications of this electoral outcome in Sri Lanka for India.
Well, I think it's obviously very significant for Sri Lanka because you now have a consolidation of power in ways that we had not seen before. You have the whole issue of political instability in some ways that was lurking with the with a prime minister that was only a caretaker prime minister is now resolved. You have the Gotabaya clan almost having their control over all aspects of governance. And I think in some ways it makes it easier for India to reach out to to them and to take their relationship forward. It also, I think, takes Sri Lanka in a very, very different political trajectory where the opposition seems to have completely collapsed. The traditional opposition seems to have completely collapsed and new political entities have emerged to take their position. So I think we are looking at a Sri Lanka that for the foreseeable future at least will be governed by the two Rajapaksas, the president and the prime minister to be. And I think that will allow India to take their engagement forward. We have seen a lot of movement in the last since Gotabaya became the president. And I think Indian Prime Minister has already, as your report was mentioning, has already reached out to the Rajapaksas and said and congratulated them, signifying I think the possibilities that India would like to tap into with a stable government which has control over all aspects of governance and all institutions of power.
Right. Harsh, I wanted to also ask you, this entire election and this victory has all been pointing towards that one constitutional change, that reversal of the constitutional amendment that curbed the presidential powers. Many have raised fears over an authoritarian state if the president of the country is given even more powers, that is over the judiciary, over the election commission. And so there is a concern as to how powerful this presidential office will become when the Rajapaksas get their way.
Oh, absolutely. I think institutionally, that's what, in some ways, these are going to be uncharted waters for Sri Lanka. We had seen in the past how a very, very authoritarian leadership, a strong authoritarian leadership can do for Sri Lanka. And the amendment, the reversal of this amendment, presidential amendment, might also cause consternation not only in Sri Lanka, in many sections of Sri Lanka, but also abroad. And I think what seems to be happening is that Rajapaksas seem to have conveyed to the majority in Sri Lanka that they are best placed to resolve Sri Lanka's problems, Sri Lanka's governance, and a strong leadership is needed, whether it is fighting terrorism or whether it is governing. So we have seen that their approval ratings are very, very high. Of course, these elections, consolidate that. But clearly, there are going to be concerns everywhere, including in Sri Lanka, in major parts of Sri Lanka, that if president becomes once again as powerful as it was the office as it was before, without the kind of checks and balances that good democracies need, then I think the trajectory of Sri Lankan democracy will be challenged, and I think a lot of concern would be raised. Right. But for the geopolitics of the region, that is something in the short to medium term that is not really very, very important.
Right. As far as India is concerned, it is trying to increase its outreach to Sri Lanka. We saw India recently doing a $400 million currency swap agreement with Sri Lanka. In that sense, India is trying to counter the Chinese presence in Sri Lanka. But at the end of the day, the Rajapaksas are known to be clearly pro-China. We've seen that India's Prime Minister Modi was the first one to congratulate Mahinda Rajapaksa on the parliamentary elections. And that is clearly India looking to change the way things were between the Rajapaksas and the Indian administration.
Well, yes, I think in some ways in the past experience tells us that Rajapaksas, especially Mahinda Rajapaksa, has in the past has played his cards very, very cleverly, both between India and China, and at times crossing a certain line with India. which India had to raise very, very strongly. But what we have also seen is that now with this, ever since Gotabaya has been as president, he has been very pragmatic in engaging with India, as was expected and as it should be. All major, all small states around India's periphery have this option of playing India versus China today, and I think they will play it to the best possible extent, trying to garner leverage from both countries, trying to garner support from both countries. India, of course, will have to play that game because India wants support from these countries on crucial matters. But the fact remains that there is little that India can do if these countries want to engage China. What India can do, is what India is doing at the moment, is to make a credible case to these countries that India is going to be an important partner, whether it is in development, whether it is in security, whether it is in diplomacy, or whether it is in regional outreach. And we have seen through these efforts, ever since Gotabaya came to power, despite all the apprehensions, India has been able to manage the relationship well in a direction that perhaps it does not tilt the scales against India and Sri Lanka. And that is the best that India can do under the given circumstances. Now that Rajapaksa clan is going to be firmly in power, India will have to be even more aggressive in its outreach. And that's why we have seen Indian Prime Minister reaching out very, very promptly to the Rajapaksas.
Harshvi Pant, head of the Observer Research Foundation's Strategic Studies Program, joining us here live on WION World. Thank you.